Well, Star Wars and Indiana Jones were basically put together, especially Star Wars, more than Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones was just done for fun, to entertain people. And there were some messages in there about, you know, uh, archaeology and also about what we believe in terms of myths
Right,
and that
right.
sort of thing. But the real one is Star Wars, and that was done in the same vein that what I was saying about the patron creates the propaganda, and what I wanted to do was go back to some of the older propaganda, which was consistent through all of the societies, which is mythology, but to say what did they all believe, because they were all, this propaganda was created independently.
Yeah.
And what are the things that they all actually believed? We're talking relationships with your father, relationships with your society, your history, relationships with the gods. All of this stuff it's old, but they're psychological motifs that were created through storytelling, primarily oral storytelling, that explained what they believed in and who they believed in. So what I wanted to do is go back and find the psychological motifs that underlie that, because those grow out of a popularism, and to say that not all, but a majority of people, boys, have a certain psychological relationship with their fathers. And that's been going on through history, and trying to explain that, to say, we know your darkest secret.
Yeah.
And therefore, you're part of us, because we all know the same things. We know what you're thinking about your mother. We know what you think about your brother. We know what you think about your father, really.
Yeah.
And those are the things that make people say, hey, this is why we believe this stuff. And again, the crudest part of that, in terms of the religious, spiritual thing, is some people have taken those ideas and then distorted them, and you end up in a cult where they're using the psychological tools to make you adhere to their society, and part of it is they have to keep it closed.
And to them.
George Lucas was apparently good friends with Joseph Campbell before he died. And Joseph Campbell was a great scholar of the mythologies of the world and religions and ancient writings, among other things. But you don't have to be Joseph Campbell to be able to appreciate a lot of the universal truths contained within many of these writings, whether it be the Bible or ancient Sumerian texts, the Tao Te Ching, the Norse Eddas, Greek mythology, even Dante's Inferno. There's certain truths that are contained within them about humankind and consciousness and the universe and the structure of it all. There's certain knowledge that it's just impervious to time. And it's easy to overlook this with all of the technology that we have today, the flashy, computers and even film. It's easy to forget that there's just certain universal truths that they just are, they just exist. And as long as there's been writing, documented record, there have been individuals trying to organize cults or groups or what have you to collect this knowledge and keep it. And sometimes it's for benevolent purposes, and as Lucas alluded to there, for nefarious purposes. Maybe they want to make you adhere to their society, the most crude aspect of it, as he put it. And part of it is they need to keep it closed. And how I translate that is that, that's based upon the idea that knowledge is power. And if I have knowledge that you don't have, that gives me power over you. So if I'm an asshole and I want to control you, I'm not going to give you that power. I'm going to, hide it inside my temple. I'm going to hide it in my fancy pyramid, and I'm going to sit right at the top, and I'm going to stare down at you and go, if you want to know more, you better start at the bottom. Back when the most recent Star Wars trilogy was released, I created these blogs as they were released and covered the symbolism and the themes that I found in them. And you can find these at batshitcave.blogspot.com. I've been wanting to do a video on this topic for a while, but I wanted to figure out a way to kind of condense it down, so I didn't want to do a whole bunch of videos. I just want to kind of condense it down to one if possible. You can find these in the archive section there. And we're going to focus mainly on Rise of Skywalker. So first, if we look at the symbolism, um, I show the Da Vinci painting Last Supper, which many have observed contains information from the zodiac, which tells us that this gets back to the knowledge, the ancient knowledge that we talked about, that has been passed down and known for a very long time. And a lot of the great works of art that we see, there's a certain symmetry and beauty to it. And some of that comes from the basic understanding of principles of consciousness and the physics of the world and the universe, and this great knowledge that has been with us for a very long time, but just simply manifests itself in different ways, depending on what period of time we're looking at. But usually it shows up in art most distinctly, because art is in a way passing down this valuable information if we have eyes to see it. And there's a lot of X symbology in the last Star Wars film, Rise of Skywalker particularly. And of course, you got the square and compass everywhere, which is the symbol for Freemasonry. When we talk about the X, we're also talking about the cross, because the cross is really just two lines crossing each other, the crossing point, the center. So I use the term loosely here because usually when you say cross, people think of the Latin cross or the Christian cross. But if you go back to ancient times, and you find that the cross is just a general symbol that's been used for a very long time. You've got the Union Jack flag here, which is comprised of the cross of St. George and the cross of St. Andrew, and the cross of St. Patrick. It's kind of combined together. The sign of Osiris risen, the pentagram, kind of looks like lux, which means light in Latin, I believe, and light, Lucifer, Lucius. Arms crossed, think of the ancient mummies in ancient Egypt, the symbology there. And then you've got a hexagram, which is also known as the Star of David. In a general sense, a hexagram is just a six-pointed star. It doesn't always automatically necessarily have to be associated with Jewish mysticism. Jewish mysticism contains traditions that are probably even older than Judaism itself. And here you go, you see the mummy with the arms, or the Egyptian, you see the Egyptian statue here, or sarcophagus with the arms crossed. And the Cairo, this was supposedly the symbol that Emperor Constantine, saw in the sky, which told him, in this sign you will conquer. And that's what made him win some great battle. And then the Romans, Constantine legalized Christianity after this. So this is called the Roman Cairo, or the cross of Constantine. Cairo, Kylo Ren. That's interesting. Okay, and here it looks like Rey is actually looking at the center of the cross, and it kind of looks like Kylo Ren is also. They're looking right at the point. That's my line, the purple line there. But you can see that the blue and the red, and these two colors, and they're all kind of, there's an impression of an X in there. And Re is actually the name of an ancient Egyptian god. And Re means light, right? Ray of light. Now, if we look at the Chinese poster for Rise of Skywalker, it's different than the American version. Although this scene here is in the American version, it's just a lot smaller. But check this out. I noticed that these Star Destroyers kind of resemble pyramids, so I drew these yellow lines to emphasize what I mean. Can we fit some more pyramids in here, please? What does this mean? This was before the pandemic hit. Are they trying to say something about something to do with China? And we've got the X again. Rise of Skywalker was released in December of 2019. If you notice, all three of the most recent Star Wars films were all released around Christmas, which is the most Christian holiday. And there is a lot of blasphemy in these films. Although it's not overt, you kind of have to pay attention and look at the symbolism to really see it. But it's just kind of interesting. They're all released around December. And this one was released just before the pandemic hit. Now, the main promotional poster for Rise of Skywalker is very dramatic. It's very eye-catching, but the first time I saw it, it has this kind of lopsided, almost noisy quality. It doesn't quite look right. There's something. I mean, it's cool and the colors are neat, but it's like, is this a lightsaber? Like, where's it coming from? Is this supposed to be Kylo Ren holding his hand at some awkward angle to meet? I don't know. So the key here is Kylo Ren. If you look at him, he's really big, right? Well, he's supposed to be a reflection of you, looking at the poster. And what is he telling you? He's saying, "Hey, I can't see everything. One of my eyes is covered." So, and you see Rey is looking at something that we can't see. And even way down here, little Kylo Ren is pointing his lightsaber up here. And Rey is pointing her lightsaber at this character, and she's pointing that way. So it's like Rey's going, look at her, and she's going, no, look at that. What does this mean? Well, first I tried it this way. And we get this kind of X here. And I'm not going to spend any time really talking about that. You can look at the blog if you want. It made more sense like this. And as you can see, there's a serpent here. You see that? There's a big snake. And if you remember the scene where they're in the desert, Rey actually heals a snake. Remember? They encounter a snake. Now, it's a stylized motif. So obviously it's not a literal picture of a snake. But it's, you can see the two eyes here. And now you can see what these two guns are aiming at and what Rey is looking at. And you can see these two X-Wing fighters are coming to a point right here, right where the border is, right where I cropped it together. So that's to tell you that's emphasizing this center column here. That's what it's doing. Kind of like if you remember Mad Magazine when they had the little fold-out thing in the back page. If you look down this center column, there's a lot of weird stuff. Like you can almost kind of see already from this distance, little triangle right there. Looks kind of also like a wizard hat on top of some wizard. Like, what is this? Am I just seeing things here or what? Well, if you go in closely, you can see this looks like this little grinning pig or something. And then there's like another face down here. What is this? All right, so if you adjust the contrast a bit, some images come forth. What's this ghoulish face? This kind of demonic looking. If you look at number 1 here, that's an eye. See? Those are eyes. And you can see a smiling face, and this is like a pig nose. It's like a big pig face. Big smiling pig face. And within that, you've got more detail. I call this the demonic Ronald McDonald Wolfman face. You see it? You see the canine teeth right there? And then the snout, nose, almost like a reptile or something. And this hairdo, it's kind of like the Ronald McDonald hair. I don't know what else to call it. And there's also kind of almost like a Mickey Mouse face here. This is that triangle we just looked at, okay? That also is kind of like a wizard hat that's sitting on top of what looks like kind of like a Mickey Mouse face. Here's an ear here, here's an ear here. So there's all these weird little images. And this looks like a cross right here that's around the neck of the demonic Ronald McDonald Wolfman thing. There's also another image. It's like this large, naked creature, okay? It's really big. And the head's up here. It looks kind of like some kind of weird lizard face or something. You see the two eyes and he's grinning. And there's two arms going like this. And see that hand there? These two hands? And this cross here actually forms a phallus. See? That's the head right there. Do you see it? Okay, it looks kind of like a large person kneeling. Can you see the feet? And these are the knees. And that's the penis. And the two hands are presenting the penis to you. I know it's crazy, but there it is. And you can see the demonic face a little bit better here. If you adjust the contrast, a lot of these different images come out a little better than others. But mind you, this is this is the center of the poster. These images only pop out if you place a reflection of the poster right next to it. If you look closely at this, it looks kind of like a Gomorian guard. He's like grinning, this weird goblin grinning. And then it looks like there's a head here of someone that's blindfolded. And this looks like a big demonic devil with horns going way up like this. And here's the snake, close up of the snake, and you can really see how their point is exactly where the center, exactly where the poster is meets the two posters meet, which is emphasizing the column. And again, you got this what looks like a triangle. That's that wizard hat thing, and it's meeting the point of the snake as well. Now Kylo Ren's little sword here, I decided to put a perfect horizontal line above it and crop the image right there. Now look what I got. Looks kind of like a cross of Malta. And if you look at this emblematic structure of Freemasonry, look here. Order of the Knights Templar Commandery. Order of Knights of Malta. Knights of Ren. There's all this weird kind of Masonic slash Templar slash Roman Empire military order symbolism, because the Knights Templar, they were basically the military order supposed to protect the Christians on the road while they were traveling, right? But they got too powerful, and it looks like the snake is kind of now pointing to this center point, and we have the X again, and X means what? 10 in Roman numeral. So 10 plus 10 is 20. This came out in 2019, just before 2020. Are they trying to say something about 2020? Something's going to happen? And there's the cross of Malta there. Maltese cross. You see this on a lot of, Masonic and even the Queen of England. You'll see this on her headdresses and adornments. Now there's a very prominent square and compass in the Rise of Skywalker and Force Awakens promotional posters. Not all of them, but I go over this in a couple of my blogs. You can go look at it. But this one just flat out has a huge 3D truncated pyramid. And if we look at the bottom, we're looking way at the bottom here. All right. Now remember, this whole half isn't there if you just look at the poster on its own. This is only revealed by putting the two together this way. Look at that. It's an owl. You see the little beak here, and there's a little demonic face inside the beak. And there's an eye there, and there's an eye there. It looks kind of like a human eye, very creepy. And there's this little creature popping out that looks kind of like a 8-bit Nintendo horned creature. And think of Bohemian Grove, where they worship Moloch, the giant owl, okay? Maybe that's supposed to be Moloch. They're talking to you. The people behind these films and these movies, they're talking to you through the symbolism. They're saying, here we are. And the owl on the dollar bill, some people think this is a spider. If you know anything about Freemasonry, they love double and triple and quadruple meanings if possible. The more meanings you can get out of a symbol, the better. So don't always assume that one symbol only has one translation. Obviously, you don't want to get carried away with it, but we look for correspondences. And the context in which the image is placed will give away the proper intended translation of the said symbol. Now we're looking at this part right here. So first of all, look at this here. There's an eye there, an eye there. Looks kind of like a nose. It looks like a big, like kind of Gamorrean guard kind of hog head with its mouth open, and the mouth is the entrance. And then if you look closer right there, there's this kind of creature with a headdress here, right at the opening. See that? And then there's a little warrior there with like a shield and armor. Where's he going? And there looks like almost like a little, I don't know, dog face right there. And these two eyes here, and this creature with a mustache. So what this is here, there's some kind of algorithm that's being fed into this graphics program that is spitting out endless variations of demonic faces mixed with like pigs and animals and humans and crosses and even sexual organs. And here I call this the evil granny face. And it helps to blow this stuff up at high resolution. It doesn't work so well if it's low resolution and blurry. But this is right in the center here. All right, it's right where the two images meet. And then these pop out. Look, this looks like a raccoon head right there with something popping up and two arms. There's all these images within images. Now this is where Poe's ray gun, he's shooting, and the laser meets itself. And again, this is a signal to you that yes, this is the way you're supposed to. This is the way you're supposed to be looking at this. That's what it's telling you. And here's another creature. See that eye there, and an ear there, and an ear there, and he's bald. Some weird creature. And who's this guy sitting at the hilt of Rey's lightsaber, looking down? See the two eyes? And finally, way at the top, we've got the eye, the all-seeing eye, looking down at everything. And it's kind of like we're looking inside of a truncated pyramid. That maybe is the top. And you got the eye sitting up there. And you can see, if we briefly go everything again, look at all this. I mean, it's amazing. I don't think I've ever even seen this before. Every time I look at this, I see something new. Looks like some weird bird face. You see that beak? I mean, it's amazing. The computer technology used in making this poster is just phenomenal. There's a truncated pyramid also in the Rise of Skywalker promotional poster.
Helmet. So, at last we meet for the first time for the last time.
Before you die, there is something you should know about us, Lone Star.
What?
I am your father's brother's nephew's cousin's former roommate.
What's that make us?
Absolutely nothing, which is what you are about to become. Prepare to die. You have the ring, and I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. Now let's see how well you handle it.
The sexual innuendo that Mel Brooks is using for comedic effect here, it works really well because it's actually there in the Star Wars films already. He's just pointing it out and exaggerating it and making it less metaphorical and more literal. So, like I was discussing in the previous blog about Spielberg and all the sexual innuendo in that, we see this in a lot of films, and it's definitely a lot of it in Star Wars. Now, this whole thing about Luke Skywalker's apprentice Ben Solo turning from the good side to the dark side under Luke's apprenticeship, I go over this in detail on the blog regarding The Last Jedi, if you want to check it out. But basically, the whole thing's a metaphor for a teacher molesting a student. And Ben Solo is an abused child, and that's the real reason he goes to the dark side, is because he was abused by this priest figure, Luke Skywalker. And you can see in this flashback scene, Ben Solo looks young, but he still looks kind of full grown in a weird way. And this reminds me of a scene in the film Tommy, the film directed by Ken Russell about The Who. That's Roger Daltrey. This is a scene from the song Fiddling About, which is lyrically about a child being molested. And that's the drummer for The Who, and he's sneaking in there, and it's a really creepy scene. But you can see Roger Daltrey is not a child. He's an adult, but he's supposed to represent a child version of himself. It's kind of abstract, but they're kind of doing the same thing here in the Star Wars film. And again, if I go into this way in detail on my blog for The Rise of Skywalker, which I recommend you look at if you want to see what I'm really talking about here. Because it does continue in this third installment. Though people seem to question the continuity going from film to film and director to director, there is actually a symbolic continuity that's very clear. So the raising of the Jed Pillar is an ancient Egyptian concept, and you can see how it's spelled, D-J-E-D-I. It's got the word Jedi in it. Is the name of a fictional ancient Egyptian magician appearing in the 4th chapter of a story told in the legendary Westcar Papyrus. He is said to have worked wonders during the reign of King Pharaoh Khufu, 4th dynasty. So you see this whole phallic thing and the Force, and the the generative force in nature and paganism, it all kind of comes together pretty easily, and no pun intended. And again, this is why Mel Brooks' film is so funny, because it doesn't take a very big leap to get to all this phallic sexual innuendo. And look, you can see Luke's lightsaber looks kind of like the Jed pillar, raising of the Jedi. You think that's a coincidence? And the whole dark helmet thing. I believe it was Jordan Maxwell that pointed out in one of his videos that Darth Vader's helmet looks like a glistening penis, glistening dark penis. And his heavy breathing, hints towards, when are you breathing heavy? When you're running fast or when you're having sex, right? When you're turned on, you breathe heavy. And Kylo Ren kind of worships this head, this helmet, this half destroyed, half melted helmet of Darth Vader's, and he kind of uses it as a divination tool. And this is really interesting. If you look at the book Baphomet, the Temple Mystery Unveiled, it's a very abstract book, but it collects the history of the word Baphomet and various historical references that may allude to the actual final meaning of Baphomet. And it goes into the Templars, the Knights Templars. The Pope had them all executed because they became too powerful, so he wanted to wipe them out. When they were being tortured, they confessed certain things. And one of the things that was allegedly confessed was that they worshipped this head called Baphomet. And it would speak to them, and they would write stuff on the tongue sometimes. And very creepy stuff. So this is all very heavy-duty symbolism being messed with in this film that it goes by really quick, and we just don't contemplate it very much. Now, if you remember, I think it was in The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren comes before Snoke, and Snoke is degrading him, and he says, "Take off that ridiculous helmet, or mask, whatever." And Kylo Ren gets pissed off, and he slams it against the wall and destroys it. Well, now he's reconstituted it. Look at this. So it's a cracked helmet. Now think about all the phallic imagery, and it's a cracked phallus, right? He's walking around with a damaged phallus, and this kind of gets into the Egyptian myths of Osiris. And I go into this in other blogs, and many other researchers have talked about this as well. This scene is really interesting because basically this is when Kylo Ren, goes public with his new helmet, and he's standing in front of his henchmen, and they're all kind of looking at each other like, "Whoa, what the hell's going on with him?" Because he looks nuts, right? They're kind of freaked out because he's powerful. He'll kill you. So Kylo Ren mentions that there's a spy in their ranks, and we know that the spy is General Hux, but Kylo Ren apparently doesn't know, which is weird because he can read minds, right? Or something. So General Pride actually stares accusingly at General Hux while Kylo Ren is saying this, that there's a spy in their ranks, as if General Pride knows already that General Hux is the spy. But instead of detecting that General Hux is the spy, instead of detecting his betrayal, he detects unease with his appearance from Hux. In other words, he's more concerned about the way his helmet looks to Hux than he is about catching the spy. You catch that? So there's some subtle homosexual innuendo there, because this is a phallus. It's this broken phallus, and he's all proud of it. And he just put it together. Like, "What do you think of my phallus?" And, "Oh, you don't like my phallus, Hux?" And he really cares what Hux thinks. So this feeds into the subtle homosexual innuendo that continues from the other episodes. There's a lot of it in Rise of Skywalker, which, again, is in my blog if you look at it. He gets angry and he points his finger at General Hux, and he gives him this smirk, kind of like, "Yeah, right, you're not going to do anything. You love it. You love the slave and master thing." They've got this slave and master relationship. And when they finally, figure out that Hux is the spy, he's basically confessing why he did it. "I need Kylo Ren to lose." So that's what it's all about for him. It's this power game between him and Kylo Ren. It's not about helping the enemy. It's about taking the top and not being the bottom to Kylo Ren. It's all sexual innuendo. Now, this scene here seems kind of pointless. They're playing hollow chess, right? And it's really quiet, and there's a lot of time going by, and it's supposed to be funny, but it's really not that funny. And again, the whole scene just feels kind of pointless. Look at Finn; he looks bored, right? And look at Poe. He seems like kind of really into it, kind of turned on, and they're waiting for Chewbacca to make his move. And he takes a long time to make his moves, but apparently he's kicking their asses. But if you look in, Wikipedia, Hollow Chess is played between 2 people. It's not played between 3 people. So if 2 people are playing the game, why are Finn and Poe sitting pressed so closely together? I mean, look, he's angled this way and he's angled that way. So where's their knees? It's like their knees are touching. And the point here is that time is going by. And what does that indicate? That indicates that they are pressing their bodies up against each other and they're not uncomfortable. Now, heterosexual men generally don't want to be pressed up like that if there's plenty of room to sit somewhere else. And this continues. And by the way, this has been discussed. I've seen people discuss this subtle gay innuendo between Poe and Finn in other places. So I'm not the only person who picked up on this. So this scene kind of echoes Return of the Jedi, where Leia is talking to Luke and she reveals her secret, her big secret, that she's his sister, right? And then Han Solo walks in and he gets jealous because he doesn't know that they're brother and sister and he thinks they're just having a tender moment together. So this is reflecting that, except Poe is kind of like Han Solo and he's getting jealous because Finn and Rey are having a private moment and he gets in there and then acts like Rey doesn't even exist and he's like, oh, you mean you want to wait till Poe's not here so you can talk about it? And you look at his face, it's right there. He's like jealous. He's like, don't be telling your secrets to Rey. Finn, why don't you tell me all your secrets? And they don't reveal the secret in the film, but apparently the secret was that he's force sensitive. But this is another example of a clumsy, what appears to be a clumsy unresolved issue or perhaps problems with continuity. But the thing is, it's not about the secret itself. You're supposed to think that's the point and that they're just clumsy and they didn't deliver that they didn't deliver that information in the film. But that's an intentional mistake because it's about underlining the unspoken gay tension between the 2 characters, which I call this in the closet approach to presenting homosexuality on the screen. You see, and you've got all these people screaming that about equality and we need to be open to different sexual orientations and such. But this film, what is this film really doing? I mean, it's a negative. If you're going to bring out these concepts in a film, isn't this kind of a negative way to do it? It's kind of a don't ask, don't tell approach. Why don't they just make it out in the open rather than do it all, underhanded like this? And this gets back to what Quentin Tarantino says in the film Sleep With Me. It's all about subversion, right? We talked about Top Gun in the last video and all the homosexual innuendo there. This happens in a lot of movies, this type of stuff. Again, look, I need you in command with me. Look at the way they're looking at each other. Again, in the closet approach to presenting, homosexuality and homosexual characters. Now, this is the character Darcy, played by Amanda Lawrence, and she's kind of considered the first out lesbian in the Star Wars series, and everyone's celebrating, oh, how great, they're finally, how great of Star Wars to, do this for the LGBT movement. Well, first of all, let's be honest here. She's quite homely and unattractive, to put it nicely, all right? And that's taking nothing away from her character, her performance. It should be about who's the best person for the job. Shouldn't be about what their sexual orientation is or what their race is. But yet they're making it all about her sexual orientation. And on top of it, they're kind of intentionally presenting this very ugly woman who, if you're a man, this woman looks very ugly. If you're a straight man, you might, say, oh, she's a beautiful person, she's a great actor. That's fine. But I mean, you're not going to get in bed with her, okay? And it's almost like an insult to the LGBT community because they're basically saying, oh, you want your first lesbian character? Okay, here she is. Is she ugly enough for you? Does she fit the stereotype enough? They're mocking us. They're mocking you. It's not about equality. It's the opposite. Just like all the weird little, creatures and little blasphemy in the posters and stuff, it's all mocking us. It's mockery. In response to those who desire to boycott the film The Force Awakens over their disagreements with the existence of a black stormtrooper, Boyega replied, I'm proud of my heritage, and no man can take that away from me. I wasn't raised to fear people with a difference of opinion. They are merely victims of a disease in their own mind. So basically, I pointed this out in the Force Awakens blog I did. How the first picture we saw of these brand new Star Wars films was a frightened black man in a stormtrooper outfit, which we know was derived from Nazi imagery. Okay, so you think they put a sweating, panting, frightened black man inside a Nazi-inspired suit just because it looked cool, or because they're trying to diversify their characters? And no, it's exactly what you think it is. They're trying to make you think of, black slave, trapped in a white prison, something along those lines. And Boyega, these actors, they don't stop acting. When they walk off the screen, you don't know when they're not acting anymore. A lot of times they have a script. He can't contradict. He can't say bad things about the film franchise. If he does, people won't go to it. Can you imagine what the people funding these films would say to him? Like, hey, shut up, buddy. Save it for later, because we got 2 films to make still. You're not going to ruin our revenue with your with your opinions, even if you are correct. So I don't. Maybe Boyega does believe what he's saying here, but you can't deny the symbolism. It's right in front of you. And in Old Irish, the word Finn actually means white, bright, lustrous, fair, light-hued, of complexion, hair. It means white guy. You see how they're mocking you? I hope you see it. So the Rise of Skywalker flirts with this whole, is she going to go to the dark side or not, concept that it gets kind of old, right? Because Kylo Ren, it's kind of the same thing, and Darth Vader and all that. So she believes she accidentally blew up a ship with Chewbacca on it. She thinks she may have killed Chewbacca. And she's got this look on her face like, oh my God, what's happened to me? I'm turning evil. Shortly after this, she has a vision, and she tells Finn about it, that she had a vision of being on the throne of the Sith. And then Finn says, with Ren on it? And then Rey responds, and me. So this is the throne of the Sith, okay? And look, the Emperor's sitting on it. Is there any room for someone else to sit there? I mean, if 2 people are sitting on this, someone's on someone's lap. So this kind of points to the weird, undefined relationship between Rey and Kylo Ren. I don't think this awkward dialogue is an accident. I think they're trying to emphasize indirectly the carnal, non-emotional aspect of Ren and Rey's relationship, or rather a depraved sexual energy circulating between them, referred to in the film by the decidedly sterile word dyad. Let's also remember that this throne is within a citadel where cloning is occurring. That is, reproduction without physical sex or a personal relationship between 2 people. This complements the AI theme running through the film. It's almost like the film is trying to erode the idea of a standard, relationship. And they're just mixing it up with all kinds of kooky aspects and doing it most of the time doing it in a subdued way. Now, when they're out in the desert there, searching for Ochi's dagger, they find themselves swallowed up by a quicksand-like substance. And they end up in this cave where they encounter this creature, which is called a Vexus. But we don't know it's called a Vexus. You got to read Wikipedia and find out later. They might mention it in the movie, but I don't think they do. Anyhow, C-3PO calls it a serpent. As soon as it comes out, he goes, serpent, serpent, serpent. So you're supposed to see this as a serpent. He didn't say Vexus, Vexus, Vexus. There's a reason for that. This is a very loaded symbol in the film, especially when we recall the serpent embedded covertly within the main poster. So they're all afraid, and they're probably going to try and kill the big serpent. But Rey says, "No, hold on," and then she starts breathing really deeply and kind of acting almost turned on, and she starts approaching the Vexus, and then she actually heals it by touching his wound, which, if you look at these slashes, it almost looks kind of vaginal, and you think of like menstruation and blood. So she touches it, and then the creature groans and is healed. And notice the emphasis on her hand. They also do this when she accidentally blows up the ship that she thinks Chewbacca's on. I believe she stares at her hand for a second. There's this whole thing about like the hand. And here it is. You know, look at her. She looks like someone who just got done having really good sex. Like, yeah, that was great, you know? And she's all touching her hand, and then she goes, oh, it was nothing. I just transferred a little energy over. If you read the Bible, the story of Jesus, there's a similar line somewhere in there. He says, you know, I feel my energy was transferred to someone who touched me, you know? So they're definitely throwing in some biblical references here. And right after she heals the serpent, this light appears above here, kind of like the light of God shining down, like, oh, like what she just did was divine, you see? And her name is Ray, which means light, ray of light. So I don't know, what are they doing here? They're putting the serpent in a position of sympathy for the devil. You know, don't fight the serpent. You got to heal the serpent. Then all will be in balance. And they're underground. You see that? They're not above ground. They're down below. Where's hell? Underground. You know, that's where the serpent lives, right? The devil. So it's like this. It's blasphemy, is what it is. I mean, it's really cool when you watch it. If you just see it as a science fiction fantasy, it's great. But if you really look at the quote unquote moral lesson that it's trying to teach, I mean, if you're going to mess around with Genesis symbolism, you know, don't come crying to me if I have an interpretation that you don't like of the symbolic significance here. I mean, we're all entitled to our opinions, and it seems pretty obvious to me that there's some blatant blasphemy going on here. Now, before they encounter the Vexus, C-3PO notes what he calls a hex charm. Note the X again. They keep bringing up XXX. Near the bones of Ochi, who is described as a Sith cultist by Wikipedia. This charm is also the logo/symbol representing Sith Eternal. And here it is right here. That's the hex charm that they see, which is kind of an interesting symbol. It looks really cool. I took the First Order logo and superimposed the Sith Eternal inside of it. Actually, this was done on a video I saw, some Star Wars nerd out video, where they put it in the middle there. So I didn't actually do this. I got the idea when I saw this video. And then I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. It looks like it corresponds. Wonder if there's what's really happening there. So what I did is I blew it up and I repositioned it so it was dead center. So you can see it looks a little off here because the original image wasn't exactly aligned. So I lined it up so that it was all, you know, in mathematical alignment. And I checked to see what angles are here. Now you can connect these lines this way and get the Star of David easy enough because it's a hexagon. And obviously a hexagon has 6 sides, so you're going to be able to trace a hexagram inside of it, which has 6 points as well. You can see there's a cube here as well. So I talked about in other blogs, you know, the correspondence between the black cube and Saturn and the Star of David, all that, just mathematical, geometrical correspondences. But see, these lines indicate something else. These lines introduce a different geometry that isn't already there. And what it is a unicursal hexagram. At least that's one interpretation. And you can see this line here touches this coordinate point, and it touches that coordinate point right there. Okay? And then going this way, same thing. Touches that coordinate point, touches that coordinate point. You can see it, maybe it's a little off, but so there's a mathematical correspondence here for what appears to be a unicursal hexagram. What's the significance of that? Well, this is Crowley. This symbol is linked to Ordo Templi Orientis, or OTO, and Aleister Crowley. In Thelema, the hexagram is usually depicted with a 5-petaled flower in the center, which symbolizes a pentacle and the divine feminine. Resembles Masonic square and compass, and a bow tie. May be represented as XX or XXX. X. Where does this X keep coming from? Here it is again. I don't know. Make of that what you will. Now, this symbol is also on this, what looks like a smooth ashlar, which is kind of Masonic, near the beginning of the film. Kylo Ren approaches this, and look, there it is. You know, here it looks kind of like a diamond inside of a triangle. But he goes in there, and what is it? It looks like a black square, right? And when he pulls the black square out, it's a truncated pyramid. Only 2 were made. This is one of the main artifacts being sought in the film, which they call the Wayfinder. Its name is self-descriptive. Its purpose is to help you find the way to Exegol. Hey, look, there's another X. Only 2 were made. The first one is found by Kylo Ren during the first scene in the film, embedded within a slab of smooth ashlar. The Sith Eternal symbol is engraved upside down upon the outer top ashlar housing, before Ren removes it to reveal a square within an octagon. We see the bottom of the Wayfinder, which also sits upside down like the insignia engraved upon the outside ashlar cover. These details are intentional, as Rey finds the second Wayfinder right side up, among the Death Star remains. What do you get when you put a triangle on top of another, which is upside down? A hexagram. Now, when Ren goes to Exegol, what does he see? He sees an upside down truncated pyramid, and that's what Wikipedia calls it. The Citadel was both underground and above ground, with the latter being a large upside down truncated pyramid structure made of black stone. The structure floated above Exegol's surface. A platform was used to lower someone into the underground part of the Citadel. The black stone is a rock set into the eastern corner of the Kaaba, the ancient building in the center of the Grand Mosque in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Talking about the black cube that everyone walks around that comes up so much when we're talking about occult symbolism. So the entire scene is kind of like this weird, dark, spiritual journey, almost like if you were in a dark Freemasonic cult. It's kind of walking you through it, and it's very cool, and there's all these like cool like demon statues everywhere and stuff, but there's something very deeply occult going on here. And I go into these different symbols like the Scottish Knight of St. Andrew, 29th degree, and how it has this 8-sided octagon in the middle, and it talks about uprightness and chivalry, and I liken that to the reversal. Kylo Ren's this whole scene here is kind of like a reversal of this whole ritual, and it's at the center of an X, which is really, if you trace the bottom of it, it's a pyramid, right? So you can look at that more if you want to look at the blog. Now, the word Egol is pronounced as Egal. Egal's origin is Old Norse. Egol is a variant form of the Scandinavian name Egil. Egil is primarily used in Scandinavian, and it is of Old Norse origin. Original forms of the name include Agi and Egil. The name was used as an Old Norse diminutive of names starting with the element egg or ag, meaning awe, terror, fear, edge of sword. Does that make sense? Exegol, the planet Exegol. Now, before Rey and Kylo Ren encounter each other on this planet here, Rey drops the Wayfinder, or I don't know, I forget what happens, but when Kylo Ren goes to pick it up, he stops it. It looks like he stopped it with his foot, but in one shot you see his arm lift up and you see, oh wait, that's his hand. Okay, it's a very strangely shot scene. It's actually kind of brilliant. You think you saw a foot at first, but it turns out to be a hand. You thought you saw a Wayfinder, but it turns out to be a pyramid. A pyramid is also at the tip of every obelisk, which is an ancient Egyptian phallic symbol. This is a phallus, and Kylo Ren just literally raised it from the ground. Recall the sun Jed Pillar mentioned earlier. He is not preparing to fight here. He is preparing to harness a phallic sexual force, and Rey is after it like a starving animal. And look at her face. She's, give it to me. Give me the phallus. So then the epic duel between Kylo Ren and Rey begins, and look at all these crosses. This is a very iconic thing in Star Wars films, but it's really emphasized here. And one of the things it represents is crossing over from the dark side to the light side, kind of like a metaphor for the sun. The old Star Wars cliche of who's going to cross over to the other side is in full effect here, but it's being clouded to include more gray areas. During Ren and Rey's many private Force conversations, a strange relationship is formed where moral ambiguity is constantly mixed with themes of mind control, nihilism, violence, social inferiority, and sexual ambiguity. The question is, where is the line drawn between good and evil here? When it comes to Rey and Ren's relationship, they seem to exist in a dimension where good and evil cross, and they just sort of exist there perpetually, like a surfer on rough waters, trying to maintain stability among the uncontrollable forces of nature. And then there's this ridiculous scene with Princess Leia where she appears as like a ghost in Ren's mind or whatever, and calls to him from across the universe in a trance. And this causes him to drop his lightsaber, and that's when Rey takes advantage and kills him. And impales him, actually. You see that? With his own cross, which looks like a Latin cross, right? So, a little blasphemy there. Every time Kylo Ren comes out wielding that, it's a subtle blasphemy, right? So then now she feels all bad that she just fully impaled him in a fit of hatred. If we look back at all these moments where we look at the hands, Rey, I lost control. That's when she blew up Chewbacca's ship. Luke's hand, when he's reaching out to Kylo Ren, when he's having the flashback scene, the molestation scene I talked about earlier, the hand. Okay, so they're making a connection here between that, Luke, apprentice molesting a student thing. They're making another reference to that scene. They're connecting it by showing the hand, the hand that crossed over. And look at this hole here. What does that look like? Look at it. Now, in the film, it kind of puckers up and heals, right? But right before it heals, look, it's like her finger's about to go in it. What do you think that represents? What does it look like to you? I don't want to gross you out, but if we're talking about a teacher raping a boy, a student, where does the phallus go? All right. Again, I don't want to think about it either, but this is what's being articulated. This is what's being referenced there. Okay? Because this is the purpose of these films, these occult themes and messages. This is what they're really about. The plot doesn't matter as much. That's why you watch these films and you go, oh, why did they do that? Oh, that's kind of stupid. Oh, well, I still like the film. They're actually brilliant films, but you have to see the diabolical underlayer that actually is the first priority. It's designed to go below the radar, and it's designed to go to your right brain more than your left brain. Your left brain is watching the film and looking for all the flaws. Meanwhile, your right brain is taking in all of this other information, which is, that's the level they're really working on you at. And, there's only 2 times Rey heals in the film. She heals a serpent, and then she heals, Kylo Ren's wound, the rape wound. So in the final battle of the scene of the film, Rey has to ride the X-Wing fighter to Exegol. All these X's. And the first thing we see when she gets there is a square and compass. It's literally in the film. Look, there it is. It's a square and compass. And this only happens for a moment. These little wings here start moving, and it's no longer square and compass. And then you've got all the pyramids in the sky, which are really star destroyers. But as we saw in the China poster, they look a hell of a lot like a bunch of pyramids. Are they supposed to represent, the all-seeing eye making its move or something like that? And one of the final scenes here is where Rey has to cross her lightsabers, and that's how she, deflects the Emperor's electrical force rays, the crossing thing again. And here you have some Knight of St. Andrew Freemasonic symbolism, and right in the center of the cross you have the Yod, which is a Hebrew letter which means hand. Yod is the 10th letter of the alphabet. Remember what we said about X, the number 10? The Hebrew letter Yod translates to hand, which is an allusion to God, for we say that God took us, tribe of Israel, out of Egypt with a mighty hand. That's from Shabbat.org. All right, so look, here's an X at the base, here's a square. You pull them all together to a point, you get a pyramid. I'm not saying that I have this all figured out, but I'm just showing this to you so you can see that obviously the makers of this film are deeply into this stuff. We've noted moral ambiguity, sexual ambiguity, racial ambiguity. I believe this fixation on the center of the X cross is a metaphor for what the films are all about. The producers ultimately want viewers to assume a position in the center of the X cross, not in any sort of divine balance sort of way, but more in the sense that one tries to stay balanced on a precarious surface. A decidedly ambiguous position. The tip of a pyramid is not the most solid place to be standing when we find ourselves there by chance. It's a subtle yet critical distinction between one's natural spiritual journey to the crown of Kether versus being hastily placed atop a pyramid where the winds of the universe howl unpredictably about and positive negative energies rage uncontrolled by the adept. A little push or even a strong gust of wind and you are going to be blown out into the great wheel of time, with no compass to guide you back. So where you end up is really left to the whim of whoever controls these winds. To put it less metaphorically, I think the film wants us questioning our own beliefs to the point where we no longer have any. And at that point, we are nothing more than droids awaiting orders on what to do, where to go, how to think, how to feel. Mindless, dumbed down, passive, docile shells of people, with no firm foundation of any kind, clasping desperately to the first order thrust upon us, up until the final order, which is our own descent into an endless black oblivion.